Hello, hi, welcome back. Another review, another day. It's Sunday. It's actually Sunday. Yes, I'm actually recording this on a Sunday, not late this week. Why does my hair look weird? Oh well, deal with it. Sorry. Yes, this is a Browns jersey. Thank you for noticing. I know it's a college football channel, but the Browns are playing right now. I'm watching halftime, so I'm recording this right now. Almost on the second half. I don't really care. Let's go ahead and get into this review, shall we? This was a really big week, huh? Really, really big week in the college football landscape. Next week is going to be huge as well. And we'll talk about the schedule for next week. It's Thanksgiving week as well. So hope all you guys have a good Thanksgiving. I'll probably say that some more this week. But let's go ahead and get into the review for this past week. Again, action started it out on Tuesday. Toledo and Ohio was the first game to go final this week. And what a performance from Bryant Koback. He's been playing really, really well for Toledo this year. In this game, he had 21 carries for 203 yards and 4 touchdowns. Good job by Bryant Koback to lead Toledo to bowl eligibility, get them the win. Western Michigan and Eastern Michigan were already bowl eligible, and they played here in this one. A couple great performances here. One receiver for Western Michigan, Sky Moore, had 12 catches for 181 yards and a touchdown. And then the running back for Eastern Michigan had 19 carries, 179 yards. Both defenses couldn't stop either one, but it is Eastern Michigan that does get the 1-point victory there as they get their 7th win on the year. But you will see both these teams in a bowl game later this year. Miami of Ohio, another MAC team to clinch a spot in a bowl game. They get their 6th win after a pretty easy one here over Bowling Green. And that is your Tuesday wrapped up. Let's go ahead and move into Wednesday. Only 2 games on Wednesday this week, not 3. Only 2. Central Michigan and Ball State. Ball State could have clinched a spot in the bowl game this week, and they don't. Instead, Central Michigan beats them out. They won this one 37-17 behind Lou Nichols, 32 carries for 219 yards and 3 touchdowns. Amazing performance from Lou Nichols. There are a lot of really good running backs in the Mid-American Conference, Lou Nichols being one of them, and leads Central Michigan to a win. And for this one right here, Northern Illinois and Buffalo. Northern Illinois is going to be really fun. Whoever they play in bowl season, watch out, because that is a dangerous team right there in Northern Illinois. But John Richardson could have been the hero again. This one was mainly in control of Northern Illinois, but Buffalo battled back. John Richardson could have been the hero again, but missed a game-winning 37-yard field goal. So it goes into overtime. A couple plays into overtime, Buffalo gets the ball first. They fumble the ball in overtime. And on the first play of Northern Illinois' possession, Clint Rakovich, game-winning 25-yard rushing touchdown off the first play in overtime. And Northern Illinois continues this impressive season. They are now 8-3. They'll be looking to push that to 9 wins. And I believe they've also clinched the spot in the Mid-American Championship game as well. So they're going to get to play 14 games this year. Heck of a season for Northern Illinois. All right, moving into games played on Thursday. And the only thing you can say about this one is Malik Cunningham. Malik Cunningham played fantastic in that game. Not only did Louisville hang 62, but Malik Cunningham by himself responsible for 7 touchdowns. He had 303 yards passing and 5 touchdowns through the air, and on the ground on 11 carries, 224 yards. Yeah, 224 yards on 11 carries with 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. A great day for Malik Cunningham. A great day for Louisville as they get the huge win over Duke and become bowl eligible as well. Okay, games now that are being played on Friday. You had Southern Miss and Louisiana Tech, and Southern Miss gets the win here. Frank Gore Jr., of course, son of legendary NFL running back Frank Gore, was forced to play emergency quarterback in this game. Only had 4 carries, was forced to play emergency quarterback, and he did pretty solidly. Didn't throw the football a lot, did Southern Miss in this game, but from what Frank Gore did, not too bad. 75 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. I thought that was just a little fun story. And Southern Miss gets a really nice win here against Louisiana Tech. Neither of these teams are going to make a bowl game, but I thought it was interesting that Frank Gore got to play emergency quarterback. Washington State kicked Arizona as they actually keep their hopes alive in the Pac-12 North, believe it or not. And I'm going to talk more about clinching scenarios this week in terms of the NFL, or not the NFL, excuse me, in terms of conference championship games. I'm going to talk about like how different teams. I'll talk about it later, but Washington State is still alive in the Pac-12 North. You might think how. I'll explain it later this week, but they are still alive. They get a win over Arizona. That's Arizona's 10th loss on the year. We'll see if Arizona picks up their second and last win of the year next week. If not, they'll fall to 1-11. But Washington State, you'll see them in a bowl game this year for sure. Houston continues to be impressive. Ever since that opening week loss against Texas Tech, they have looked really good. The newly 24th ranked team in the nation beats Memphis. As Memphis still trying to get bowl eligible, they need one more win to do it. Houston was not going to let that happen, but Memphis has a great chance to do it next week. So we'll see if the Tigers will be in a bowl game this year. Two teams that we will see in a bowl game, and this was a very, very interesting game to watch here. Air Force and Nevada. What a game this was to watch. This one was pretty back and forth. It was some really good football to watch, and it went to triple overtime. But you know what? This Falcon rushing attack is just really freaking good. 83 carries, 476 yards, and 5 touchdowns, including the game-winning 2-point conversion that won them this game here. So Air Force moves to 8-3. Nevada drops to 7-4. I don't think you can call this a disappointing or a surprise for either of these teams because we thought both these teams are going to be pretty good. I'm going to say it's a little bit of a disappointment for Nevada because they've lost some games they probably shouldn't have lost, but these are still two really fun teams to watch when bowl season rolls around. And speaking of the Mountain West Conference, there's another game down here. It was a late one that night. And again, UNLV has been competitive this year, only has 2 wins to show for it, but they've been competitive, including a close one against the 19th ranked team in the nation, your probable Mountain West champions as well in San Diego State, as they pick up their 10th win of the year. It was a very, very close affair, though, with UNLV. This was a fun football game. A little more stressful than you would have liked if you are a San Diego State fan, but all in all, you get the win. Some good performances all around in this one. And San Diego State is able to survive. Again, they are headed to the Mountain West Championship game to face who? We're not quite sure yet, but we will find out next week. I will go through that again. All right, and now into games that are being played on Saturday. There were a lot of them, as you see. Only 2 teams were on bye week. Hey, those 2 teams are actually going to play each other this last week of the season. Fresno State and San Jose State should be a fun one as well. But in the games that were played last Saturday, or I should just say yesterday, right? Texas A&M able to beat Prairie View A&M really easily. Not much trouble there in that one, of course. A&M 16th ranked team in the nation. This was a pretty decent Prairie View team, but of course Texas A&M just a really, really good Division I FBS team, and they're able to beat Prairie View no problem. Able to beat Akron no problem is Kent State as they pick up their 6th win. They become bowl eligible. How about the MAC, right? Getting a lot of teams in bowl games. The Mid-American has a lot of good teams, but there you go. Kent State is now in a bowl game after a 38-0 throttle of the Akron Zips. No Sam Howell today, or I should say no Sam Howell yesterday for North Carolina. Didn't seem to be much of a problem, though. They get the 34-14 win over Wofford. This is not a very good Wofford team. You probably should have beat Wofford by a lot more. But again, North Carolina still gets bowl eligible with that win. They have a tough one next week against a good NC State team. Of course, that rivalry, I believe that one's going to be played on Friday. So that one should be a lot of fun to watch. Can't wait to see what happens there. But North Carolina does pick up the bowl eligible win. They are headed to the postseason. Into the second column of games now, where we have South Florida and Tulane. Tulane easily able to win this one. No problems there. Neither team making a bowl game, but Tulane. We thought this team was going to be a lot more competitive after that week 1 game against Oklahoma, right? And they haven't proven to do that. And I think this is a really good win for Tulane. You finally get into the win column after so long. Had to have been frustrating for Tulane fans seeing you being that close to beating Oklahoma, and then you couldn't get anything going. It's okay, Tulane fans. You got the win this past week. Purdue and Northwestern. This game was played in Wrigley Field. They had Wrigley Field all decked out in football things. It was a really good environment as well. But Purdue, or I should say Northwestern, technically the home team because it was in Chicago, right? No match for Purdue in this one. Is Aiden O'Connell had another really good day. 423 yards with 3 touchdowns. And you might think, okay, well, how many did David Bell get? 0, actually. It was Wright who actually ended up getting most of the load in this game. He had 8 catches for 213 yards, and all 3 touchdowns were thrown to Wright. So it was a good day all around for Purdue. Again, this is a really interesting and competitive team that you have to watch out for come bowl season. But I think this is a really good season for Purdue so far. We'll see if they can continue it next week when they play Indiana. Of course, Indiana probably has been the biggest disappointment of the year so far. You see them over here. And again, that will be prevalent when I do my top 10 disappointments of the year. Indiana, you can expect to be high on that list. But for Purdue, this has been quite a surprise for Purdue. I did not expect them to be this good. We knew they had some good talent, but I just didn't really expect it all to gel as well as it has, especially pulling off 2 top 5 upsets and hanging 31 on an Ohio State defense that looked really good yesterday. Don't worry, we'll get there too. That's coming up in a little bit. We're going to stay in the Big Ten, though, as Penn State, Sean Clifford went out early in this one, but no huge problems here as they blank Rutgers. And that's going to set up a really interesting matchup next week with Rutgers and Maryland for a bowl eligibility spot, right? For a bowl game spot. There are a couple games next week that set up bowl eligibility spots. I think I'll throw a special segment like that in my preview prediction for this week. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But Georgia throttles, no real surprise there. The number 1 team in the nation is going to stay that way, although the gap might be closing, right? Again, we're going to get there. But 11-0 is what Georgia, first time that they're 11-0 in a pretty long time. Charleston Southern, again, no real challenge there. 56-7, the final score in that one. But keep that score in your head. That's going to come up later. Mississippi State, also another SEC team facing their cupcake, as some people call it. A lot of controversy on why they were ranked, but nothing this week said otherwise. But again, you didn't really play anyone that substantial. So 55-10 final score in that one. They beat Tennessee State. Army, little trouble with UMass here, but all in all, they do end up getting the win. It's 33-17. Army moves to 7-3, while UMass drops to 1-10. You might say 7-3. What happened? Well, again, you have Army Navy, of course, the week after conference championship game. So Army has looked pretty good this year, and we'll see how long that continues. Again, they got 2 more games left. Excuse me. Still got to play Navy on there too, which is always a fun game. Kentucky, another SEC school, rolling through their competition, 56-16, the final score there in that one. Okay, let's talk about Florida State for a second, right? I know I'm rolling through games a little quickly, but trust me, most of the meat is in here. We'll get to this one. We'll get to this one. But most of the meat is in here, right? But Florida State and Boston College. I do want to talk about this one a little bit because let's talk about Phil Jurkovec on the side of Boston College. He didn't look that great, and you can kind of feel like maybe Phil Jurkovec is still not 100% healthy and ready to go. But 148 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And Phil Jurkovec usually posts better numbers than that, right? This is the quarterback that was supposed to go in the NFL draft this year. And while he still might, probably won't go as high as he should. If not, he'll probably definitely come back next year and work on his skills if he's eligible to do so. But Phil Jurkovec, not that great of a day. It was a pretty solid day for Jordan Travis on the other end, though. He had 251 yards and 3 touchdowns for Florida State. The Seminoles were up 19-3 at halftime, and I thought, so Florida State's obviously going to steal one here. And, well, while that was the result, it didn't seem that way for most of the second half because Boston College was starting to storm back. They were starting to get into it. But Florida State has all to play for. That has everything to play for in this game. Boston College, you were already in a bowl game. Is it up to a lot of people's expectations? I feel like this team could have been better, but definitely part of that was due to the Phil Jurkovec injury that I get. Still does not look fully 100% ready to go. Probably came back a little earlier than a lot of people expected him to. But for Florida State here, this is a very crucial win. Now you move to 5-6, and who saw this coming? It's going to set up Florida State and Florida next week as well for a spot to play in a bowl game there as well. How about that? Yeah, we'll talk about that one later this week as well. But Florida and Florida State are going to be playing for a spot to get into a bowl game. No, not a national championship, not a playoff spot, a bowl game. Think about that for a second, right? That's how crazy this season has been. There have been a lot of disappointments, a lot of surprises. But Florida State, after starting 0-4, now find themselves one win away from bowl eligibility in Mike Norvell's second year as the head coach. And I mean, maybe they can do it next week. We'll talk about Florida here more in a little bit, but Florida State gets a huge win on the road against the Boston College team. That is kind of reeling a little bit, but again, already in a bowl game, so it doesn't affect them too much. Let's talk about the big one this week, right? The top 10 matchup. Ohio State, Michigan State. Game day was here. It was a fun environment. Lots of great people filling the stands. And they walked away pretty happy from this one. Actually, really happy from this one. Even I was kind of watching this game just like, so when is Michigan State going to find? Never? Okay. As you guys know, or maybe you don't know, I am an Ohio State fan. Look at the Cleveland Browns jersey I'm wearing. That probably gave it away a little bit as well. But I am an Ohio State fan. And if you watch my Ohio State fan reaction to this one, you would know that I was genuinely surprised we played this well. I mean, just a great overall performance by the Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm giving you one stat line from Michigan State, and then the rest is all Ohio State. The stat sheet was all Buckeyes in this one, but 158 yards and a touchdown for Peyton Thorne. He didn't play bad. The Buckeye defense just played really, really good, and that defensive line was able to do whatever they wanted in that game. I thought the safeties played well. The linebackers played well for Ohio State. The defense was rounding in the form here in this one. While there are still things to fix, yes, definitely not at the level of number 1 Georgia. But this is probably now the second best team in the nation because listen to these offensive stats. They didn't play Travion Henderson as much, but resting him up for Michigan, sure, I get that. Master Teague was the running back that shined on senior day nonetheless. 21 carries, 95 yards, and a touchdown for him, for C.J. Stroud, making a Heisman case here. He did all this, or I should say most of it, in the first half. 32 of 35 for 432 yards and 6 touchdowns, ties a record, has tied it with, I believe, Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins, J.T. Barrett, another Ohio State quarterback as well. Kenny Guyton, I believe, there as well. For 6 touchdowns in a game, most ever. He tied it. Again, I drop things when I record, so brand new marker now. But then the wide receiver group, it's no doubt that Ohio State has the best wide receiver core in the nation, but they might have the best 3 wide receivers in the nation, period. That's Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. And if you haven't heard of any of these guys, what are you doing? Do you even watch college football? That's what I would ask you. Olave had 7 catches for 142 touchdowns. Wilson had 7 catches for 126, 2 touchdowns, and Smith and Jigba got the most catches yet on Saturday. 10 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown for him as well. All of these guys are going to eclipse 1,000 yards at the end of the year. Smith and Jigba already has. Wilson's pretty darn close. Olave's got a little bit of a ways, but again, another game like he had in this one, he'll be able to get there. Just complete and utter dominance. And it's probably setting up like it's going to be Ohio State and Georgia in that national championship game. At least that's what it's looking like right now. Now, I don't want to speculate anything. You can say you're biased. You're an Ohio State fan. Fine. You can say what you want. But Georgia has just looked overall great, and Ohio State is starting to round into form. Imagine if Ohio State plays this team right here like this next week. Yeah, the conversation can get really serious. But that's a fantastic win for why can I not talk today? It's a fantastic win for Ohio State. I had like frog in my throat. Jeez. Sorry about that. Fantastic win for the Buckeyes. They held Kenneth Walker to, I believe, 6 carries and 25 yards, and that was it. Heisman candidate now for CJ Stroud, most definitely. Kenneth Walker's Heisman candidacy is probably done. Even though he's played fantastic this year, I think he should be a front runner for the Heisman, and he probably likely still is, but probably won't win it now with that performance. But great performance by the Buckeyes. We'll see how far they can take it. Texas, not bowl eligible for the first time in a long, I don't believe it's that long of a time, but not bowl eligible this year. And what a surprise. Texas not bowl eligible. First off, you lose to Kansas. You lose this game here. It's a little understandable because West Virginia is a pretty solid opponent. Definitely both these teams have underachieved this year because West Virginia should have been really good. But this was mainly in West Virginia's control here. Texas battling back, couldn't get there. Again, a late turnover for the Longhorns sealed their fate in this one as West Virginia. I don't know what's happening to me today. West Virginia able to get the win there. Of course, now they are 1 win away from bowl eligibility, but I believe it's Baylor that they got to play next. So hard one there, right? And Baylor's going to be playing for a lot tomorrow, or a lot next week. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of playing for a lot next week, Oklahoma. And Oklahoma survives a scare here to Iowa State. Iowa State kept this one really close. In fact, some great performances by the quarterback and tight end from Iowa State. Not a lot of great stat lines across the board from Oklahoma. The stat lines in this game would tell you that Iowa State won, but of course, total yards really don't lie. And of course, the scoreboard doesn't lie either. Oklahoma found a way to win this game, but Brock Purdy and Charlie Kohler had such a good connection in this game. Purdy had 281 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. The 1 touchdown did go to Charlie Kohler, who had 12 catches for 152 yards. Charlie Kohler had a monster game, but Iowa State could not pull off the upset against the Oklahoma Sooners. They came up just short, and Oklahoma keeps their Big 12 championship games alive. I'll talk more about how they can get there next week, but basically, what's going to happen is if Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State, then it's a rematch in the championship game. But if they lose, then Oklahoma State goes to play Baylor. So Oklahoma State's clinched a spot, and I'll say that later in the video as well. Western Kentucky gets a nice win over Florida Atlantic, not letting them get to bowl eligibility. They're going to have to play their final game in order to get there. A great win by Western Kentucky. Bailey Zappi is just a machine at the quarterback position. Wake Forest and Clemson. What has happened to this Clemson offense lately, right? It seems to just get a spark. And speaking of offensively, Wake Forest couldn't do a whole lot, or at least as much as they normally have this year against this Clemson defense, and just an absolute explosion by the Clemson offense in this game here. DJ Uiagalelei, 208 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Still not the level he showed last year, but better than what it has been. But how about running the football for Clemson? They were able to do whatever they wanted against this Wake Forest defense. That has been the downfall of this team. And Wake Forest still might not even win the division. If they don't win next week against Boston College and Clemson takes care of business against South Carolina, Clemson's still in the ACC championship game. And that could be dangerous. But Kobe Pace, I talked about rushing the football. Kobe Pace, 24 carries, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Will Shipley, of course, coming back from injury this year, 19 carries, 112 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him. So doing whatever they want to, rushing the football were the Clemson Tigers. They get a monster win over, in the committee's eyes, at this point, at previously in this game, a top 10 team. Assuredly, they might not even be top 15 after this week. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. But Wake Forest picks up another loss, and Clemson still alive for the ACC championship game. Again, I'll break all that down next week. Coastal Carolina, Grayson McCall back playing in this one. They get the 35-21 win over Texas State. So good win there for Coastal Carolina. Arkansas State and Georgia State here in this one. Georgia State picks up bowl eligibility as they get a 28-20 win over the Red Wolves. Iowa was struggling a little bit here with Illinois. And again, there's no really stats that jump out to you at this one. It was just the Iowa defense doing what they've done all year, playing good football. Tyler Goodson finally eclipsed the 100-yard mark for, I believe, only the third or fourth time this season. He's really kind of struggled to get it going this year, at least as much as I thought. But the 17th ranked Hawkeyes are going to stay ranked, and they keep their hopes alive in the Big Ten West as they win by 10, 33-23 to the 17th ranked Hawkeyes. Number 8, Notre Dame handles Georgia Tech easily, picks up their 10th win of the year, 55-0. Your final score in that game. The Fighting Irish get it going. Kyron Williams, 2 touchdowns again in this game. So some good things happening for Notre Dame, making Cincinnati look good as well. That helps the Bearcats out a lot. Washington and Colorado. Colorado, they still seem to have offensive problems in this game, but Washington, of course, with the firing of Jimmy Lake, they've also been a big disappointment this year. Washington. So this is where the stat line can get confusing to some people, right? Washington only 183 yards allowed. So Colorado didn't even get 200 yards of total offense, but got more points because Washington, 4 turnovers. There were a lot of short fields for the Colorado Buffaloes. 4 turnovers for Washington, 2 fumbles and 2 picks. Really nice game played here by Colorado, taking advantage off the turnovers, making them pay, and you get the 3-point win. We'll see neither of these teams in the postseason in bowl games now that Washington picks up their 7th loss. But what was still a pretty exciting game. If you're a Buffalo fan, you had to be feeling really good about that one. And then final game of the second column, App State completely annihilates Troy. And App State, I believe, on their way to the Sun Belt Championship game. So that'll be App State and Louisiana. Yeah, not Coastal Carolina, because remember, App State beat them. I believe there's still a path for Coastal Carolina to get in there, but I'm not quite sure. I don't think so. There might be. No, there's not. I'm pretty sure it's going to be App State and Louisiana in the Sun Belt Championship game. So that one should be a lot of fun. Remember what happened? Louisiana kind of smacked them around, but that should still be a very, very fun game. So moving on now to the third column, and I'm actually going to switch sides. I keep dropping stuff. Why do I drop stuff whenever I record? One of the mysteries of life, I've come to find out. All right, here we go. What the heck? All right, third column time. East Carolina able to take care of business against Navy. They get the 38-35 win there. Still on their way to the bowl game, but building momentum. Of course, they have that game against Cincinnati next week. So that one should be a pretty interesting one to watch there. And Navy, of course, not played great this year. They don't have the great numbers to support it either. The triple option offense can be hard to run. Navy currently sitting at 2-8. Maybe they can get a win over their rival in Army. Maybe. We'll see, though. Old Dominion able to get the win against Middle Tennessee. Is Old Dominion, they've also been on a streak to try to get to a bowl game. If you are a Monarchs fan, you have to be feeling pretty good right now because Old Dominion very close to a bowl game. But Middle Tennessee can also clinch one next week. So we'll see what happens there in those games. Minnesota's already going to a bowl game, and they played the biggest disappointment of the year. Indiana, 2-9 now. Yeah, what? Man, Indiana was supposed to be a lot better than this, and it just has not happened this year for Tom Allen's squad. 35-14, your final score. Minnesota pretty much did whatever they wanted in this game. Bullied Indiana. And able to get the win is Minnesota. I believe their hopes are still alive in the Big Ten West as well, although probably not as much, right? Because they got beat by Iowa. So I don't think they're still alive. I think it's between Wisconsin and Iowa. And we'll get to Wisconsin here in a little bit. But first, Marshall and Charlotte. Charlotte was getting off to some really nice games earlier in the season, and it's kind of gone downhill the rest of the way. Of course, they had the win over Duke this season. Some pretty good wins for them as well, but they can't get past Marshall. They can't get past Marshall here in this game. They lose this one by 21, and now they have to win their next game in order to be bowl eligible. I think they can do it. It's going to be a little hard for them, though, right? Nebraska might as well be the best 3-9 team you have ever seen in your life, because I just list off the close games they've played. Ohio State, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Minnesota. Now this one here against Wisconsin. Like, they've had so many close games. Husker fans are probably really, really frustrated right now. And they were down near the goal line at the end of the game and just couldn't punch it in. But again, as I've stated, Wisconsin has started to find their offensive rhythm, including their running game. Of course, with Ches Malusi now out for the year, Braylon Allen is coming onto the scene. A 17-year-old. He's really good. Braylon Allen is 17. He enrolled early so he could play, and he has been lighting it up. This kid is a talent. He's going to be the next star at Wisconsin. I can just feel it. 22 carries for 228 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Husker defense that usually has a pretty solid run defense. Couldn't get a lot going in this one. Austin Allen and Samori Toure on the side of Nebraska, though, played well. 7 catches, 143 yards for Austin Allen. And for Toure, 7 catches for 113 yards and a touchdown. I believe that's the most catches he's had in a game this year. Still went for 113 yards. Did get in the end zone as well. But the Huskers, again, come up just short. They can't get it done. That's the theme of the season for the Huskers, right? They just can't close it out. They can't find a way to win games. Wisconsin can, though. And they're on a pretty nice win streak here. I believe that they're now winners of 7 straight. And the front runners clearly in the Big Ten West, although next week against Minnesota provides a challenge. So we'll see if they can do it. UTSA wins on a game-winning 1-yard touchdown pass that was actually tipped. It was Frank Harris to Oscar Cardenas, and it was tipped. UAB looking like they're going to steal one here, come on the road and win the game. But no, UTSA catches it off the tip drill with 3 seconds left. Not much UAB could do. UTSA wins this game to remain unbeaten, and they are also on their way to Conference USA championship game. So some really exciting stuff happening. If you are a Roadrunner fan, get excited, because this is a good team. This is a gritty team. They won one when they were down, and they had to get one pulled away. Looked like UAB was going to win it for a long time. They were in control for most of the game and able to pull it out and get the win. All right, Cincinnati playing SMU here. 11-0 now are the Bearcats, and they also, much like their in-state counterparts in the Buckeyes, looked like a complete team in this one. A really good win over SMU. Desmond Ritters, who I want to highlight, played pretty well. 274 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. Had a couple scrambles there as well, including a long touchdown run from Desmond Ritter there as well. Did not write down his rushing stats, so my apologies. But a really good game from Ritter. Really good game from Cincinnati. And their playoff case is looking stronger and stronger each week with teams dropping and going down. We'll get to this one. This one was surprising. But Cincinnati and SMU, Cincinnati able to pull away and get the crucial win there. And they get the style points that they needed, right? They get those style points. All right, Michigan and Maryland. Michigan, you thought Ohio State was building momentum? Well, clearly they did. But Michigan also building momentum. This is going to set up a matchup, this matchup right here. Funny how they're across from each other. Funny how that worked out. I didn't plan it. Again, as soon as I see a game go final, I throw it up on the board. So by pure coincidence, these two teams next week, what a fun one that's going to be, right? For the Big Ten East, Michigan gets the huge win over Maryland. Also sets up Maryland and Rutgers for lesser stakes, but still some big stakes nonetheless. A spot in a bowl game between Maryland and Rutgers, but a spot in the Big Ten championship game between these two teams in Ann Arbor next week. That one should be a lot of fun. Game day is going to be there. Pretty positive about that one. That one is going to be fun. And BYU struggling early with Georgia Southern, but they're able to pull away and get the win here. They get the win by 17. Oh, pardon me. I skipped a game. Look at me. Alabama and Arkansas. We'll go back to that one, and then we'll jump to NC State. But Alabama and Arkansas. K.J. Jefferson, 326 yards for 3 touchdowns. And Treylon Burks, of course, his favorite target, 8 catches for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns. But that was not the best. Those were not the best performances of the day. The best performances were on the other side of the ball. You thought C.J. Stroud made a Heisman statement? How about Bryce Young? Crushed an Alabama single game passing record with 559 passing yards, 5 touchdowns on the day for him as well. No interceptions on the day either. And then talking about wide receivers, talked about Treylon Burks. How about Jameson Williams? Imagine if he was still on the Buckeye team. That wide receiver room would be best all time. But Williams has been very good in an Alabama uniform. 8 catches for 190 yards and 3 touchdowns in this one. And John Mechie, who's now kind of been playing the role as the number 2, 10 catches for 173 yards and a touchdown there as well. So some very nice things happening there for Alabama. But again, they looked vulnerable in this game here, right? I think it's going to be interesting to see what the committee does next week. If they keep Bama at 2 or if Ohio State jumps up to number 2, I think that's going to be a very interesting conversation to watch. I would keep eyes peeled on who is number 2 in the rankings next week. Again, not going to matter a whole lot. I just think it's going to be something that is going to be interesting to follow. Also, my top 25 poll also revealed on Tuesday as well. But for Arkansas, hey, man, they tried everything, right? They pulled a fake punt out. They pulled out a fake punt to go ahead, and it fooled Bama. It did. It fooled Bama. Arkansas able to score, actually, on that play, but Bama pulls away late, and they get the 7-point win. We just talked about Michigan, talked about BYU. NC State now probably still not going to make the ACC championship game because I believe they would need Wake Forest. Well, no, they can't make the ACC championship game, but they can still make a solid bowl game. Nice win here over Syracuse, as Syracuse still needs that one win to become bowl eligible. So 41-17, the win there for NC State. Some nice things happening there. And Pitt clinched a spot in the ACC championship game this week. Virginia was already bowl eligible, but they played a hell of a game. And how about Brennan Armstrong? He came back and played in this game. 487 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception on the day for him. But Kenny Pickett on the other end also had a really good day. 340 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions for Kenny Pickett. But you want to talk about performances? This deserves a helmet sticker on College Football Final. I didn't see who got one this week, but Jordan Addison, oh my goodness, 14 catches, 202 yards, and 4 touchdowns on the day for Jordan Addison. Are you kidding me? That's insane. An all-time performance there from Jordan Addison helps Pittsburgh clinch the ACC division, and they are headed to the ACC championship game. What a win for Pittsburgh. And they await either Clemson or Wake Forest, you would think, in that game. Although, actually, there still is a chance for NC State to make it. But they need both Clemson. Well, you definitely need Wake Forest to lose, and probably also need Clemson to lose as well. So there's still some interesting things that could happen in the ACC. Again, I'll go through clinching scenarios next sometime this week. But there you go. There's that one for you. But Pitt clinches their division in the ACC. The other division still got some figuring out to do. Tulsa getting the win here against Temple. They're moving closer to bowl eligibility as well. Again, one more win needed for Tulsa to get into a bowl game. One more win as well for TCU, as Kansas coming along. Kansas almost had their second straight conference win, but Griffin Kell had other ideas. The field goal kicker for TCU, as he boots the game winner, 25 yards. with some extra time left, is TCU able to win that game. And UCF and UConn, of course, UConn, another team to fall to 1-10, as UCF booms to 7-4 with a nice win over the Huskies. Not a surprising win there. But how about this blowout, right? To the average football fan, they might say, well, why is that game so surprising? I've never heard of Liberty. I don't know where that is. And to college football fans, this is a surprising result. Not that Louisiana won, but the margin of victory, right? This Cajun defense was exceptional in the game here. In part, they forced Malik Willis into 2 picks. So again, another multiple interception game for Malik Willis, but 7 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. Of course, the 7 sacks are included in the tackles for loss. So they had 7 sacks and an additional tackle for loss in this game. But the defense was stifling all game long for Louisiana, and the offense just scored too many points for Liberty to keep up with. The Liberty defense couldn't stop anything either. In Louisiana, a very good win here against a good Liberty team. So Malik Willis, definitely going to go in the NFL draft, but definitely has got some work to do, right? Dan Mullen is out as the coach of the Florida Gators, as this one, you were playing for a spot in a bowl game here. Both teams entered 5-5. Florida probably should have ended up winning this game. The game ends up going into overtime. Missouri able to win this one. Tyler Beatty, 27 carries, 146 yards, and a touchdown. And that one touchdown came as a 13-yard rush in overtime. And then they decided, hey, why not? Let's go ahead and go for 2. Try to get us into a bowl game. If not, we can go ahead and have a shot to get in one next week. Connor Bazelak to Parker, game-winning 2-point conversion. This leads to Dan Mullen's firing, and Missouri gets into a bowl game. So again, this now sets up Florida and Florida State over here to play for a bowl game spot next week. So lots of stakes in that one. This is a 62, not a 52, but UCLA rolls USC, absolutely rolls them, and a great win here for UCLA. They just roll over the Trojans. And UTEP getting back on track now. They get another win in the win column against Rice. They get that one by 10 points. All right, last column of games here. I know these videos are long. Thank you for sticking with me. Baylor winning this game by 10, proving that they can win on the road, now sitting at 9-2. I know it's a little hard for you to see. Something must have happened there, but the 11th ranked team in the nation, not the first ranked team, the 11th ranked team in the nation, improves to 9-2. They get the 10-point win over Kansas State. And they were able to outlast Kansas State despite what Deuce Vaughn did. 11 carries for 128 yards and a touchdown, with 5 catches, 37 yards for him as well. So able to outlast. But for Baylor now, you are big Oklahoma State fans, right? Because if Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma next week, then Baylor is in the Big 12 championship game, and they get a spot to play for a Big 12 title. So some really interesting things that can still happen in the Big 12. Again, I'll go through all of it next week. Auburn gets upset here in this one. They lose 21-17 to Frank Beamer in South Carolina. There's a lot of speculation that Frank Beamer might take that Virginia Tech head coaching job that is vacant right now. I would probably think he does as well. He said that it is his dream job. Of course, where his dad coached, there's a lot of family stuff there as well. But he has his Gamecocks right now in a bowl game. And Auburn, of course, has to go play Alabama in the Iron Bowl next week. So some interesting games as well, because South Carolina, of course, has to go play Clemson. Interesting to see what happens in both of those games. California is still trying to push their way into a bowl game as well. Of course, had that game postponed against USC, so they'll still have to play that the week of conference championship games. But they demolished Stanford here in this one. And again, that Stanford loss to Oregon now, it just continues to look worse and worse. But it doesn't matter anymore. Again, we'll get there. Cal with the huge win. North Texas, you want to talk about teams going on streaks as well. I talked about Old Dominion going on a streak to get to a bowl game. How about North Texas as well, huh? 49-7. I know FIU's had a lot of problems this year, but North Texas still now 1 win away, but you knew who they have to play next? Yeah, that's right, UTSA. I don't like their chances of necessarily getting into a bowl game, but it's not out the realm of possibility. Both teams are going to have a lot to play for in that game next week. Miami beats Virginia Tech by 12 as Manny Diaz and his crew get into a bowl game. And of course, Virginia Tech, without a head coach right now, able to get into a bowl game with a win next week against Virginia. But that one's still going to be a tough one. We'll see what happens in both of those games. Probably the most surprising result of the week happened here, right? Oregon just looked flat, huh? So they didn't have Red or Johnson available for this game. And then, of course, they had another wide receiver say, I'm done, and he left the program. But Utah hangs 38 on Oregon, while Oregon only hangs 7. When you look, these two teams were so even on paper. They were super even on paper. But just complete domination here in this game by Utah. We'll go through some stats here, but Brown, 231 yards, 1 touchdown for Brown, and total yards here for Oregon, only 294 total yards for the Oregon Ducks. Sorry, there's football game on. Sorry, I'll pay attention. But Brown, of course, 231 yards, only 294 yards of total offense for the Oregon Ducks. When you look on the other side, Utah didn't have a great stat line either. Cam Rising, only 178 yards. But Tavion Thomas, great day for him. Again, he has come on as a great running back in college football. 21 carries, 94 yards, 3 touchdowns. And how about Brant Keithy? 5 catches for 118 yards. And again, also Brenton Covey, probably the most dangerous return man in all of college football. You could throw Emeka Egbuka in there as well, although he doesn't have one in the house yet this year. But Brenton Covey, Oregon decides to punt late in the second half, and they punted to the most dangerous man in college football back there fielding punts. And wouldn't you know it, Brenton Covey takes it to the house before halftime. They go into the locker room up 28-10, and right there, I said, so Brenton Covey returns this punt, then game's over. Sure enough, that's exactly what happens. And Utah, crucial win here. A preview of the Pac-12 championship game. Oregon plays Oregon State next week. And again, Oregon can still not make the Pac-12 championship game. So there's still some things to go on. That's going to be interesting to watch. So we will see what happens. We'll see what happens. But Utah gets a huge win here on their home turf and pushes Oregon and thusly the Pac-12 out of the college football playoff, more likely than not. A couple SEC games here up next. Tennessee clinches a bowl game. 60-14 was the win over South Alabama. Ole Miss in and of itself did not have a great day, but Matt Corral, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. It was an okay day for him. But again, probably should have beat Vanderbilt by more, right? 31-17 final score there. Ole Miss still gets the win. Wyoming was able to run all over Utah State in this game as they clinch a spot in a bowl game of themselves. Titus Swen, 15 carries for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Xavier Valladay for Wyoming, usually the featured tailback, did get much of the load. 21 carries, 145 yards. So Wyoming ran all over Utah State, able to get that win. And Oklahoma State, again, clinches a spot in the Big 12 championship game. Going through some stats here, Spencer Sanders, 239 yards and 1 touchdown, along with 4 carries, 48 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. Favorite target was Tay Martin. Didn't throw the touchdown to him, but still 7 catches for 130 yards. But this defense for Oklahoma State is what makes this team so dangerous. This is such a dark horse college football playoff contender. Very much so dark horse. Very much so a dark horse candidate for the college football playoff. If they win the Big 12, they have a great argument to get into the college football playoff. A great argument to get there. And this defense is a great argument why. 108 yards allowed, 5 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, a quarterback hurry, and a forced fumble that they then recovered. This Oklahoma State defense is good. Probably not as good as the Georgia Bulldogs. Yes, no, but it's still a really, really good defense. You have to be good to hold anyone to just over 100 yards. So good win there. Rolling through these last games now. LSU moves closer to bowl eligibility. The SEC could have 13 bowl eligible teams. How crazy would that be, huh? 27-14. Struggled a little bit with University of Louisiana Monroe, but they still get it done. Complete domination here by Boise State as they get the win over New Mexico. Oregon State, they are still alive in the Pac-12 North. They had to win this game today, but they are still alive. Sets up a big matchup with Oregon next week. And Oregon State, a nice win over a good Arizona State team. So Oregon State, again, I talked about it in the offseason. Oregon State's a team that's just kind of been, kind of steadily increasing. They've been getting slightly better year after year after year. And again, this is another huge step up for Oregon State, especially if they can beat Oregon next week. They were able to do it last year, but if they can beat them next week, that would be huge. And then Hawaii wins a shootout with Colorado State 50-45 as they get one win closer to bowl eligibility and of themselves. Of course, Hawaii usually always plays 13 games. There you go. Done. There were your bye weeks, just Fresno State and San Jose State. These two teams are going to play each other next week. Of course, the 3 undefeated teams still left. That is, of course, Georgia, Cincinnati, and UTSA. We'll see if they can keep that up next week. Some upcoming videos. This is in addition to my usual schedule. So don't worry, I'm still going to have the playoff or the ranking videos on Tuesday. Still going to have the playoff predictions on Wednesday. Still my predictions to come on Thursday as well. But so upcoming sometime this week, conference championship clinching scenarios and some early playoff conversations and scenarios. We'll talk about that this week. And then next week, I'll give you some college football playoff clinching scenarios for sure on what needs to happen in conference championship games in order for certain teams to make the playoff. It's going to be a lot of fun these next couple of weeks. Of course, the last week of the regular season is next week, and then we get conference championship week, which should be a lot of fun. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, clicking on the video. If you enjoyed, leave a like. If you really enjoyed it, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts on this week, your early thoughts on next week. And again, enjoy your NFL Sunday. First time I said that in a while, right? I will see all of you guys on Tuesday with my top 25 ranking reveal in comparison to what the playoff committee puts out on Tuesday night. I'll see all you guys later. Goodbye.